Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Mandala Effect podcast. And I'm super excited today because I have a very good friend with me. For those of you who are new to the Mandala Effect, thank you for joining us. For those who are regular listeners, thank you for joining us as well. The Mandala Effect is a podcast that I hope can encourage and inspire you to go and live your absolute best life, because more than what you have been told is possible for you, and that alone should really excite you. So we're going to have a really exciting conversation today, and let's begin. Queenie, thank you so much for joining me. So let me intro my friend. Carolynne's a success coach, business mentor, and human design specialist. I've known her for how many years? 4?
4 or 5, it must be.
4 or 5, and we met in good old Brum and have kind of never been able to get rid of each other ever since. Like, we have a little group chat with our other friend Gatsby, and we probably touch base every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless one of us is going through a dark night of the soul, which we'll get to later.
Yeah.
So Queenie, please say hello.
Hi, I'm really grateful to be here. Thanks very much for the invite. I've been wanting to do this for so long, and it's been like ships in the night. It's like, yeah, we'll do it. No, we really will do it. So we are doing it now.
I know, I messaged you 2 days ago because it has been it's been on my mind. And we've mentioned it. I mean, God, we nearly started one, the 3 of us, years ago, didn't we?
Yes, we did one episode. It was fab.
We did one episode. Yeah, but all I remember is Gatsby going about Malaga on a scooter.
I've still got the video if you want to upload it somewhere.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. So we never really got anywhere, and then a year later, because you were living in Malaga, COVID hit, and then I was poorly. You, in between that time, had a dark night of the soul yourself, which, like I say, we'll get into. But do you want to just kind of explain a little bit about your, I guess, business journey? Because you have done so much, you've been successful at so much, and now here you are, a mentor for entrepreneurs and a very, very passionate woman about seeing people succeed. So talk to me, how did you get here?
So the story that I like to start with is when I went to see my careers coach at the age of 14, you know, where you go and do your options and do your GCSE, what you want to do and things like that. So you go into the office and you sit down, and there's a you know, a person sat there and they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And this chap, I know, and this chap was a friend, my friend's dad. He's a policeman, so, you know, upstanding member of the community, maybe a little bit indoctrinated into the whole career path thing. And I just looked him bang on in the face and I said, I don't want to work in an office. Now, what you've got to remember is this was the 90s. You know, I'm that old. This was the 90s. And back then we had no idea what entrepreneurship was. But that's what I was meaning. I didn't want a regular job. Nothing against regular jobs. We need people to do the things.
Yeah.
So he took it as, oh, well, if you don't want to work in an office, you want to work outside. So he gets hold of this piece of paper and he's like, well, you're very good at geography, so why don't you go and do geography? So for a long time, my path was geography. I did a degree in environmental management. And all the while, I was like, I'm curious about people. I'm curious about the world. So geography was ticking those boxes.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious about psychology and sociology and economics and all that kind of thing. And when I finished my degree, I came back to my hometown, which a lot of us do.
Yeah.
And we have that kind of inflated kind of ego of, well, I've got a degree, so I should be getting a job. Anyway, ultimately, at the age of 23, I had it all. I had the house, the car, the job, the boyfriend, the social circle. And I was utterly bored because I had fit myself into this tiny little box of what you're meant to do. So I followed my passion at the time, which was business and computing and entrepreneurship, and I went and did a master's in it. And ever since the age of 24, I have been constantly cheerleading and building businesses, cheerleading entrepreneurs, wanting people to succeed. Because when you hit that point in your life where you're like, I just want to blow it up, I really don't like this. That's the point when you've met so much resistance that you're just like, actually, no, I want to do something about it. So
Yeah.
I've had businesses in multiple industries doing multiple things. And this is where I am today, just championing the entrepreneurs of the world to do it right as well, because we can get it quite wrong.
Well, we can get it wrong, yes, and we have a few examples of that. But I think when people do get it right, they change the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the idea of, I think it was Steve Jobs that said, there's the people that created the world are no more brilliant than you are, kind of thing. And everything we see around us is being built by entrepreneurs. We're the world builders, and it's quite a responsibility. And if we do it right, we can really make this world an amazing place.
Well, absolutely. And I think this is where you have to ignore the shit that you see in the news, because, well, that's not for people like you and I, and I imagine the people that are listening to this podcast as well, because it's not, we know that that's actually not the reality. But and I encourage people to, like yourself, go out and see what incredible things are being done, and how people are lifting others up and making positive change, being the change that they want to see. Because this, and it's the whole point of this podcast, is that if we can make a change in our little corner of the world, it impacts everybody. It has an infinite impact on the world. So whether you're doing it positively or negatively, it has an infinite impact on the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we start building things, like you say, when we start building them from our hearts, then into our minds, then into our bodies, then out into our friend groups and our reality, and then we're also adding to the collective consciousness as well. So we're raising the vibration of the world.
Exactly, absolutely, without us actually even having to think about that, because it automatically happens, because all of our energy fields are interconnected.
Yeah.
I was thinking, how long is it going to take us to start talking about the collective consciousness and vibration of the world?
We've clocked up like maybe 8 minutes or something. I don't know. Is that a record? Do we get a prize?
We get a prize. We always get prizes. Oh, amazing. So I'm going to take you to a point in your business. In fact, no, before we go there, what got you into personal and spiritual development?
So
because I have a point in time that I did, and I know the exact person who I followed in order to do that, and I'm curious to know what your point was.
So when I blew my life up, I blew my relationship up and everything. And
we're so good at that.
I am the first class blower upper. And I moved down to the Midlands with my new boyfriend, and it's really funny because I'm the kind of like spiritual psychologist, success coach, and he's the engineer. Except he's always been an engineer kind of thing, and a scaffolder and things. And he was the one that introduced me to Tony Robbins. So yay, big Tony. And so Brady had given me it's the green book, Awaken the Giant Within.
No, I think that's a red one.
Or is it?
But it'll have been republished, I would imagine.
So he basically handed me this book, and that's it. The world changed. So I consumed this book. It became my Bible. And then I got a copy of Get the Edge 7-day?
Yeah. The Ultimate Edge.
Yeah. And it was like the you listen to the cassette tapes. I had an MP3 player back then, none of this iPhone gubbins. And I used to go for my power walk every single day round Markeaton Park. If anybody knows Derby, round
Oh
Markeaton
my
Park.
goodness.
I know. So that was back when I was 24. So two decades ago. And ever since then, I was like, just tell me more. Just tell me how I can get better, but not from a place of being broken. It was just like, I can make my world better. I can make myself better, my mindset better, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that was it. It just blew my mind. It opened my mind, and I've never gone back. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So thanks, Brady and Big Tony Robbins.
Yeah, well, and that's it, you know, because Tony Robbins, bless him, he gets some stick now because he, you know, he's a particular type of person, and he worked very well in the 80s and 90s, and now the world is a bit softer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and yeah, and but he's a started, like, he was my person. He helped me. I flew across the world to go to one of his seminars. I didn't really know who he was, but I was like, oh my god, this man's going to change my life.
Yeah,
and he did. You know,
exactly. It's the tiny little opening of doors that you think, oh well, this is actually a wall. I'm going to butt up against this wall continually with my mindset, and then all of a sudden, Big Tony's like, there's a door here, and you walk through it, and that's it. Like, oh, and then there's another wall with a door, and you just keep on going.
Those bloody walls. Somebody just needs to knock those down.
I know. But like you say, that back in the day, you know, in the 80s, and we had, you know, Bob Proctor and Wayne Dyer and all of these greats, and we had a handful of them. I mean, you can literally name them on one hand, the greats kind of thing. And like you say, they were, I mean, we're not going to go down that route, but they are the masculine energy of like, get it done, mindset. It's, you know, just take action. And now we're realizing that, hold on a minute, there's shades of other things in there that we need to be giving our energy to, or looking at the energy of. So, I mean, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, basically. But we don't have to be a carbon copy of them, which is something that I feel really strongly about.
Yeah, and just to clarify to everybody watching this on YouTube, that Carolynne's water, it's got turmeric in it. You're wondering why it's that colour.
Yeah.
So
I prefer it if it was some kind of alcohol, but we're not going to go there.
Champagne, darling. So yeah, we are absolutely, and they've led the way, and now I think that the world, in its kind of spiritual leaders, the consciousness is rising, and the frequency of and what we're being given, we're understanding on a completely new level. And I think with the Tony Robbins teachings, a lot of it has been about force, and when you force, ultimately, eventually, if you force without holding any kind of, I guess, space to be compassionate, to be have, you know, it's almost like the real spiritual stuff brings the yin to the yang of the Tony Robbins personal development. And I'm saying Tony Robbins, I'm just making a category. It's not about him personally. I'm making a category, a Tony Robbins category, generalization, but it can be force. And then when we do force too much, and it might not work for the vibration that the world is in at the moment, that then starts to collapse. Things start to, you kind of, shit can hit the fan. This brings me nicely onto our next point of, tell me about your burnout.
Oh God, which one?
Well, so just to clarify, you were in Malaga, was it during COVID? And you hit a dark night of the soul. We don't just have one, unfortunately. I have been told. So please, can it just be one? No. Anyway, over to you.
Spoiler alert, we get many. So obviously this is a very similar thing to a lot of people. You know, we were building momentum before COVID, and when we hit that kind of stop point, we could either sit there and, allow, which is a very good way of dealing with it, or we can start
Mhm.
pushing and forcing, just like you've just mentioned.
Mhm.
And up until that point, things were moving in a really great direction for me. And I hit burnout because I'm going to bring a little bit of human design into this. I'm not going to go into the
Yes.
technicalities. We're going to keep it high level. So there's a type of human design called a generator. You're a manifesting generator, so we're very, very similar. And we've got this incredible energy about us. So we can go for days. And one of the things that ends up happening is we keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. We're like this freight train that just we can't stop. Think of a oil tanker. It takes forever for us to stop or change direction. We just go, go, go.
Yeah.
And what we do is we forget to take care of our spiritual energy, our emotional energy, and our physical energy. We're already massively in our heads
Mhm.
anyway. So what ended up happening with me was there's a whole bunch of things that I had to take to bits with this. So there was a lot of proving. I wanted to prove that I could be a great web design agency owner. I wanted to, I was doing the kind of, I can work for ages. I was getting some nootropics into me. I was mainlining caffeine. I was doing it all because this is what we're taught. We're taught two main things: go out there and get it, and work hard, and you'll get rewarded.
Mhm.
And those things are not necessarily true for certain types of people in human design, which we will come on to later. So I burnt out, and my last hurrah at trying to revive myself was getting a success coach. And
Mm.
oh, it was amazing, but it was all head stuff. It's, like we were saying about Tony Robbins and stuff. It mindset, brilliant. But unless you're
Yeah.
taking care of your physical body, your nervous system, if you're not taking care of your emotional connections, if you're not taking care of your spiritual connection, like your spiritual connection is essentially like your authenticity and where you're going in life and your purpose and your big why. And I hit the wall. It must have been about this time last year with
Mm.
everything. And there was a whole bunch of things going on with Rona and Brexit. And I had to retreat back to the UK. It felt like a
Mhm.
retreat, but it was one of the greatest decisions. I had to take 6 months to, basically because of Brexit rules and all that kind of thing. I came back to
Mhm.
Derby and I just sat there for a month and I just was like, what the hell just happened? That was
Yeah.
intense. That was insane. And what I did was I slowly put myself back together. I went completely back to basics. And at the time, I was, just lightly experimenting with human design. And then all of a sudden, it was like, no, this I've got to. It keeps on coming back to me. It needs to
Yeah.
be. It needs to be taken like seriously. So I rebuilt myself through human design and deconditioning, which is
Yeah.
mind blowing, and it just
Yeah.
blows your soul wide open.
Yeah. Yeah. So when deconditioning, like unlearning the
Yeah,
programming, yeah.
yeah. And the thing, like I mentioned, I have nothing against mindset. Mindset is amazing, but it's not everything. We have the 4 different energies that we need to take care of, and mindset is just one thing. So we can continue to think and think and think and think, but then we can spiral into, you know, overthinking the wrong thing as well. So then whatever we think in our minds, we expect, and then reality turns up, and then yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Absolutely. Because thoughts are, yes, it is just one aspect, and also because if you feel one thing and you're thinking another, the body goes off the feeling. It doesn't go off the thought. So the feelings have to match the thoughts.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, you're right, because it's just one part of it. and
mm,
and and when you're thinking the things, and I think this is really important when you're in personal development, in the personal development world of force and mindset. And if I just think this way, then this will happen, which is a lot of what law of attraction, the secret, is based
mm,
on. And that is really dangerous, because then you get to the think, why the fuck is it not working? And that's when you ultimately hit a mental breakdown. And
Yeah.
I used to beat myself up because I was doing the right things on paper, but the rest of my energy wasn't fixing it. And at the time, but we all have wasn't fixing it, wasn't aligning, but it it yeah, it's just it's one thing, and now we're learning it's about so much more than just
Mm.
thinking, but thinking is still really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said before, it's like the yin and yang different aspects, the
Yeah.
masculine energy and the feminine energy. And, you know, I was brought up by a ex-military fireman and, you know, you know, this
Wow.
incredible matriarch as well. And there was, you know, logic, critical thinking, mindset, you know, that stuff wins, you know. Oh, you know, and then all of a sudden you start going down the spirituality route, which is way more feminine energy and rest and nervous system work and emotional connection and reparenting. And then you're just like, hang on a minute, how's nobody told me about this? And that's what I was alluding to when I got the success coach. It's like very, very good at the, you know, it's the knowing and the doing, but it's the being part as well. It's like your body is 8 or 9 times more powerful than your mind. So it's going to
Yeah.
completely inform your mind, danger, danger, danger. And your mind's going, I'm manifesting, I'm manifesting. It's like, it doesn't work like
Yeah.
that.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Disconnect, massive disconnect.
Yeah. Oh, really interesting. I
Mm.
actually read something very similar about that in the Upanishads yesterday.
Oh, they would just slip that in there.
But we're not going to go into that because my mind's still blown.
Oh, there you go. I mean, personal development, it never stops, just keeps on getting
It
deeper.
never stops. It never stops. And then you end up, like we were just speaking about before, you go back to the source of where, because you've done this in your
Hmm.
human design, you know, you go back to the source of where all of this stuff started. And newsflash, it started before Tony Robbins. It
Yeah,
started, it started actually extremely spiritual thousands of years ago.
yeah. And also,
Um,
what we've also said as well is that science is only just proving this as
Catching
well.
up.
It's like, come on,
Yeah.
guys, get with the program.
I know, but thank goodness for science
Yeah.
because it will make it so much more accessible to people.
Mm.
And sometimes when I've been in too much of the spiritual realm this year, again, it's about balance. I have almost dismissed science, or my ego, my spiritual ego, has dismissed science in that. Oh, but they're scientists. What do they know?
Mm.
Can you imagine? And coming up, so I've been brought up surrounded by critical thinking as well, with
Yeah.
uh, my mother being a chief executive um, of a health board. Um, so that's kind of been very much my mind. But then trying to explain the spiritual stuff when I'm going through the cancer stuff, and I'm like, no, I'm meditating,
Yeah.
and they're like, is this helpful?
Yeah.
But it's like, um, since I've dug deeper into some of the new science that's coming
Hmm.
out, and the new science that backs up the meditation, the new science that backs up the consciousness, like we discovered with the Nobel Prize winner the other, what was it, October, that was published.
Yeah.
I will link this article in that we're referencing in the description if anybody's interested. But they've basically proven that we don't live in a material reality. Is that right?
Hmm. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's, yeah, we're consciously creating
yeah,
every part of it
yeah,
with our mind.
yeah, which is incredible. Um, and so yes, and so this and a lot of my learnings have been with Dr. Joe Dispenza, who is also doing his own scientific research, and
Mm.
you know that's science as well. So thank goodness for science that is proving it to make it more accessible, make
Yeah.
this information, I guess, in a way more believable to the ego mind, when reality, I think if you knows whether something's true because of how it feels in your body.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when I started learning all of this stuff and it just felt right, I knew that I was onto a winner.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
I
like you say,
imagine.
we've got science catching up with what we innately know as human beings when we sit still long enough to, like you say, shift the ego out the
Yeah,
way, and it's like, no, that intuition kick is correct, and I can't quite
yeah,
understand why, because obviously that's our mind, but when we get into our heart, and then it's like, oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, I don't know whether you can see, I've got bookcases back here. We've got like
yeah,
two different sides of the room. We've got like the personal development side, and then
yeah.
the engineering kind of like
Yeah,
physics thing. And there's some really heavyweight books in there on physics and quantum
yeah,
theory and all that kind of thing. So me being a scientist, I'm
yeah,
fascinated by both sides of it. But
yeah.
but yeah, once you get that pull of the intuition, it's just like, I don't care whether it's science or not. I know that this is right for me right now.
Well, and it's so important that you mention intuition because we can be so intuition often gets dismissed. People don't know when it's their intuition talking to them. Um, and intuition is what led me to a miraculous healing cancer healing journey. And I'm sure intuition is what led you to um, overcoming your burnout and having a breakthrough in your own health, because you said you had to completely talk to us about your nervous system and what happened there, because you like said that it kind of like started shutting down.
Yeah. So like I said before, I hired a coach that was, I
Yeah,
mean, great coach for what needed to happen right then.
yeah,
But the things that were starting to creep in with me was, things are starting to show up in my relationship, for example, where I'm incredibly like snappy and things. I'm like, hang on a minute, this is not me. What's going on?
yeah,
And I feel that it is when we start in our interactions with our closest friends and family and all that kind of thing, we start thinking, that's not me. What's going on?
yeah.
And I actually have a good friend who is a nervous system specialist, and she mentioned
Mm,
to me, she's like, "Well, what are you doing for rest? What are you doing for play? What are you doing for intentional, being with yourself?" And I was like, "What are you on
what?
about? I'm just." If I do more, if I have this mindset and I just keep on pushing and pushing and pushing, I will have a breakthrough and then I'll rest, which is another thing that we get taught, do the work first
Yeah,
and then the reward comes at
and
the end.
then yeah,
And then, but what I discovered in my human design was like, again, I'm a generator, so I do have a lot of energy, but it's not something that is, you can keep on going and going and going, but you can't ignore the signs of physical breakdown. You can't, you're starting to think things that you're like, hang on a minute, that's not me either. And
yeah,
things start creeping in, and all it is your nervous system and your body is informing you that there's something wrong. It's just a signal that you can either keep on plowing on, or
mm,
you can kind of be like, hang on a minute, I'm going to get curious about this. So the deeper I went with the nervous system work, it just made so much sense to me. And I feel that this is such a huge missing piece, especially for entrepreneurs, especially for driven, ambitious types, whatever career you're in or whatever. We forget that our nervous system is our interface with the world. Our sense
mhm,
making machine and our body is like the whole package of like how we interact with the world. But when our nervous system is like screaming at us, we can't ignore it. And our mind starts getting involved and starts making up stories and like catastrophizing, getting anxious. I mean, I started being anxious, for goodness sake. I've never been anxious in my life, but
bloody hell.
I remember sitting there in Malaga when I lived in Spain, and I was sat on my balcony and I was like, I've got to go to the shops. I've got to go to the shops. I'm scared to go to the shops. I'd been to the shops so many times, but it was like I was so anxious and my body was literally like, you need to go and rest. And thankfully we have siestas over there. So I went and had a siesta.
Yeah,
I calmed my nervous system, and then I was able to take rational thought
yeah,
and actually do it. But I thought, that's not me. That is definitely not me. So what is going on? So that's the route that I went with, nervous system work.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And you know, meditation helps with the nervous system. So before I was diagnosed with cancer, I was diagnosed with chronic stress, and it's a similar thing. I was having anxiety attacks before I logged into meetings, and that just
Babe.
that's like not normal. I've had to just turn off Zoom because I was having like a panic attack on Zoom. I've had to have people call me to help me with my breathing because they've noticed that I'm like that. That's not me. Bloody hell, when that was not me. So anyway, I was recommended to do a breathwork coaching, and so somebody taught me how to breathe properly, and that helped me regulate my nervous system and
Yeah.
learn about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And now meditation is funny because my breathwork coach, who's amazing, but he teaches about nasal running mainly for sports, but he does this breathwork coaching to help people with stress as well. So he was teaching me about the parasympathetic, and he said, I remember him saying, like, if I just put my tongue to the top of my mouth
Yeah.
and start breathing slowly, he's like, I start salivating within 10 seconds.
And also your
Because,
nose unblocks as well.
yeah,
If your nose is
it's just
blocked, you can do
amazing.
that. It's like imagine sitting there and paying for somebody to teach you how to breathe. But it's like,
Breathe, yeah.
this is so much power. And I know that you've done a lot of that kind of stuff. And then when I did a 10-day breath work, like retreat kind of thing, and all the different types of breath. And I was like, hang on a minute, I'm feeling sensations in my body that it's almost as if one side of me has just woken up again. I'm thinking, how is this even possible? But again, we're not taught any of this at all.
We're not taught it. I mean, we're not taught it. And in the Western world especially, we've come so far away from what it is to be human, because we're chasing the ego, and the ego is a persona that we build to help us survive, but actually it's not helping us survive anymore. It's probably the cause of most deaths, because we're chasing what the ego wants and what the ego needs. And I'm by no means making the ego bad or wrong, but we have to be aware. And unfortunately, sometimes we do have to hit that burnout, hit the diagnosis, because it's all relative. It's all the same thing. I was on a course at the beginning of the year, and I explained to the woman why I was there, and I said I was diagnosed with X, and then I was put 2 weeks with X with cancer, and then I was diagnosed 2 weeks before with chronic stress, and she just like laughed. She's like, they're the same thing, and they are. But burnout's the same thing, and it's like, wow, it's all the same. And we put our bodies under stress because we're not taught any other way, especially in the Western world. So I think it's fascinating that then we have to be pushed, and not everybody will be pushed to learn this in this lifetime, but we have to be pushed, have a wake-up call, a spiritual awakening, whatever it is, to help get us on our path, to help us get us back into our bodies, help us reconnect with our spirituality. And I don't, I'm not talking about praising, worshipping any gods or anything. I'm talking about understanding what we actually are, who we actually are, why we're here. And then from that, we can then go about consciously creating a life.
Absolutely. What she said times 10.
And then you found this through your burnout, and let's talk about what the fuck human design is.
Oh my God. Okay, so I'm going to preface this with human design is a tool. Just as much as we know that meditation, mindset work, it is a tool. However, and also I've just like you, we've studied multiple modalities. We've got this incredible toolbox, and human design was the thing that brought it all together. it's like, how I like to describe it is, it's like Myers-Briggs, a Myers-Briggs personality test, and astrology had a love child. It's like it's like, these are the things that I know about myself through my personality. These
Yeah,
are the things that are hidden from me and I want to know more about. And then all of a sudden you read your human design, you're like, hang on a second, that's
yeah,
me. And
yeah,
it's really great because it not only gives you permission to be more of who you are through your own, your authenticity, but it also gives you a path of well, just the whole process of returning back to yourself as well, and getting rid of so much of the bullshit that we've been taught by
yeah,
society and how we've been brought up, and not trivializing trauma but with trauma in there as well.
yeah,
it's it's your own personal blueprint, it's your personal playbook of returning back to who you are, basically. And then also, like I said, giving you permission to be more of yourself as well, because again, we stuff a lot of that down. So yeah,
yeah.
I remember, um I've been on my human design journey for about 3 years now, and it's only in the last year that I've really gone deep with it and really like experimented properly with it. And
It takes a nudge.
well, yeah, exactly. And I remember voice noting my friend that introduced me to it, and I was like, oh my god, it makes so much sense now, I totally get it, thank you so much. And it was so overwhelming, it was amazing. You should have heard me. I was like, this is incredible, it just makes me feel like I'm a human again. And then from then on, it was just like, there's so much power in this. And I was like, how can I take this tool and make it accessible to everybody? And that's when I started developing my own techniques and things. So the rapid alignment technique is in there, and deconditioning, and yeah, just don't get me started, but get me started on it.
You're like, give me permission to go deeper.
Exactly.
You have
Yeah.
permission.
What do you
Go
want to
where you
know?
want.
So actually, that's a really good question. So it's like, what do you want to know? How are you curious about this? Because my type is a generator, and we love to respond. So when you ask us questions, we're like, yeah, I'd love to tell you.
Okay. All right then. Okay. So, um, how did human design help you come back to? Um, how did you use it personally on your personal journey? So you found out about it, you know about it, you learned about it. There is a lot to, well, there is and there isn't a lot to understand to human
Mm,
design, because it's like we said, when you read it, it will make sense to you, it'll resonate with you. But and you have the words like generator, masting generator,
mm.
manifesting
One of them.
generator, one of them, and you know, and then you have all of these different things, and it's like a bit like a chart, and it's all quite technical. But when you get past that, how did you personally use what you learned in human design to rebuild yourself?
So amazing question. So this human design, one tiny little bit, because it is huge. I mean, when I stepped into the world of human design, I was overwhelmed and I didn't really know where to start. So I just started pulling threads out of it. It's like, oh, I'd really like to learn about channels. So what channels do I have? And I don't want to get too technical on it. So the power that I found was the 9 centers that we have in human
Yeah,
design, which is the 7 centers in the chakra system. And they
yeah,
obviously start to correspond, and you start to look at your design, and whether one of your centers is defined, it has access to that energy, that chakra, or it is undefined or open, it takes on energy from the world. That for me was just mind blowing, having done a lot of personal development work anyway. So, for example, um, I started with my ego, heart, will center, and I was like,
mm,
okay, well, where am I trying to prove? Because mine is undefined, so it takes on a lot of stories from other people. It takes on a lot of society's programming. It takes on a lot of experiences that I've had with people. So for example, in our families, we, if you've got siblings and things, it's like you're almost like pitted against your siblings. It's like, well, so and so's gone to university, so why aren't you? It's like, I've got to prove myself. And that is your heart, will, ego center if it's undefined. So it was, for me, it was rebuilding myself from the root center, which is obviously your grounding, all the way, and like your lower chakras, which is like your three power plants basically that you need to, obviously this is super technical, but you're like, yes.
No, I love it. I'm like, yeah, go.
So like we mentioned before, the Joe Dispenza stuff, it's like, as long as you've got like these power plants running as cleanly and as efficiently as possible, then we can start moving up into our heart and our mind and our intuition and all that kind of stuff. So I put myself back together using the human design centers, which are the chakras, and I don't like calling them quantum leaps, but I was waking up one day a completely different person. I remember distinctly doing a meditation. It was actually a Joe Dispenza one that was centered around, releasing all of this, all of this gunk out.
Is that the one I sent you?
I think it could be.
Yeah, live the life you love. It's the best.
Oh my God.
Yet.
And I've been meditating since I was a teenager. I've journaled since I was a teenager, but not understanding the whole power of it and like the whole movement and the biology behind it.
I'm like, Kundalini energy.
Right. And then it was so significant that I was like, hang on a minute, I've got to start taking this more and more seriously.
Yeah.
And then, like I say, you've got like the deconditioning part, and then there's also the permission to be more of yourself. So, I mean, you said earlier that my nickname is Queenie, and in my human design, there is a gate called Majesty, which is the sovereign. Now, I picked the name of my company, The Sovereign Woman, before I even had a clue that I had this in my design. And also, one of my good friends nicknamed me Queenie. And he was like, this is just who you are. And I was like, oh, well, that's nice. That's nice. That's a cute little nickname. But then the more that I started looking into human design and I started really focusing what attracts people to me, people call me Queenie. It's no coincidence. Of course, this is the way that it is. It's like I attract people through being Queenie. It's like,
and so I'm just going to back that up for you and make your ego like a little,
hey,
please.
I'm going to take it on.
Because when I met you, so I met you through our mutual friend Gatsby, and it was in Birmingham on this accelerator that we were on, and Gatsby introed us, and she said she's got this amazing club. We go to spa days, and we have champagne. And I met you, and I was like, well, of course, this is what this woman believes. And I was sort of besotted ever since. So, and then we did some spa days, and it was so cool.
Yeah,
and then COVID.
Yeah, I'm absolutely 100% bringing those back. Well, I am like putting them out there now as VIP days to start doing this again, because I absolutely love it.
Well, and like you say, it's your energy. It's your energy, and it's who you are, and it's probably an area that people are going to get the best out of you in, like an environment where if you're in that empowered environment where you are you as the sovereign woman and Queenie, then people are going to get so much value from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I've read lots and lots of different interpretations of that gate, so it's gate 34 basically. The technical part is we have 64 gates, and they're turned on or off, and they're also called gene keys as well, which we spoke about earlier. So it all references back, which is then the I-Ching, and the I-Ching is like the 64 archetypes of humans, which I absolutely love, all that kind of thing. And so gate 34 is the sovereign. And when I read it, I was sat in a cafe, and I just, when something just hits you just so hard, and I had tears in my eyes. I was just like, this feels right. This feels so right. Thank you for the permission to be this. And in so here's a little bit of a story as well. When I was younger, up until the age of 6, you get your school report, popular, happy, a joy to teach, high grades, and then something happens around 6, 7, and you
Yeah.
start getting bullied because you're posh. Now, posh to the kids around me was I held myself to a higher standard. I wanted more with my life. I mean, I was brought up in a small town up in the northeast. So when you get called posh, you start to be like, oh, no, that's not me. That's not me at all. So you start to push it down. So then when I started being called Queenie and enjoying the finer things in life, because we all deserve it, we all have this abundance, we just have to tap into it. When you say yes to that and you're like, oh, actually, that is me, then the world starts opening up and you start attracting everything that you want. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so pleased that you kind of went into that, because we often feel like, but this is me, and we're so scared to go down that path. But actually, when you do embrace who you actually are, the world opens up for you. Life stops being difficult. And and when life gets difficult, it's because you're not in alignment somewhere. And this is where things like whatever you choose, whether it's human design, whether it is things like astrology, or whatever your kind of, or chakras and the spirituality that way, whatever your way of kind of tuning into your, or if it's just intuition, if you're not in alignment somewhere, things are going to be difficult. And I've faced that, you face that, everyone's faced that. I still face it today. I've got some stuff that I'm working on, and challenges don't face when you get the all clear. Don't stop when you get the all clear. I've learned they keep on coming, but it just means that there's a misalignment somewhere, and you can learn where that misalignment is. And I think what's so beautiful about the human design is, and I love the name, because it's like, this is how you as a particular human were designed in this incarnation on your journey. Like, this is how you were designed. So this is where you can overcome this is how it is. And you what do you say, play life with the cheat codes on.
Oh my god.
And so human design can actually give you those cheat codes effectively. I love that. I think it's so cool.
It is. It's almost like this like secret gang where it's like, oh, here you go. This is how you live life. This is how you're meant to thrive. This is how you're meant to get prosperity and live in your zone of genius and connect through relationships. And it's like, oh my god, these really are the cheat codes. And like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years, and for 19 years it felt like it was a struggle. It was a conscious effort to do something. And then when I found out my human design and I really put my foot on the gas with it, everything became so much more easier. That the efficiency was just like, okay, well, this is in your chart, you can choose to investigate it. So like I said before, that we talk a lot about the ego, me and you, because that's like Jungian psychology, which is like amazing. And once you start digging into the ego, if you have that, if you haven't got the energy for it, it's like you can do a lot of childhood trauma work through that as well. You can start to look at how you're impacted through society, and it's just like you get to choose because it's there. You don't have to. Therapy is amazing, but you don't have to go through years and years and years of therapy or
reliving the same story.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, let's dig into your, how you need to reparent yourself again. It's like, oh my god. So it's like permission to be you, and then to get curious about how you're living and where there's like an inefficiency on your energy. And I've actually got your design here, obviously. And you mentioned about, funnily enough, you I always forget about this. So the one that I always focus on for you, because it's your biggest energy in your chart, is the so you've got the incarnation cross of the sleeping phoenix, which is like the the world is moving into this incredible energy. No big deal.
I'm special.
You are special. You're here to lead us. And it can be so overwhelming when somebody says, oh, by the way, there you go. That's your design. You're meant to be like, it shows how it's
I'm
done.
like, well, duh.
Yeah, it's like, ego's like, well, duh. And then it's like, oh, shit, I really do have to up my game. So gate 55 for you is about the victim mentality versus the freedom. And you speak about freedom, and it's just like, it's natural to you. Freedom from so much. It's not just freedom to do what you want, it's freedom from carrying the rocks in your backpack that you've collected over years and years, and freedom of your mind, freedom of spirit, freedom of authenticity. And I just find it so beautiful that this is your thing. and I always say, well, no big deal.
It's like completely by accident as well. And I fought it for a long time. But having freedom, when I look back on my life and what I have experienced, and I've always chased freedom, like always. And this has probably not always been healthy. But I know now that we can be free, and we don't have to live in this societal cage, and we can step out of that. But but we have to learn these things about ourselves and do this self-discovery before we can actually do that. Because it's not just about freedom of having loads of money. It's not just about freedom of being able to go on holiday when you want. It's not about freedom to be able to I love Joe Dispenza's, because it is about this as well. Joe Dispenza's definition of freedom is being able to do what you want when you want, as many times as you want, and that's the people that you
want as well,
with the people that you want, and that's amazing. But it's about having the freedom to actually believe what you believe, and having the freedom to freedom from your mind, freedom, like it is about so much more. And as I step more into that, I am facing an incredible time in my life where I'm letting go of things that don't serve me, and that things that once were such a huge part of my life, and I was very successful in them, and now my life has changed, and I'm giving myself permission to be more me, and that is, and that is freedom. And so it's really, I find it fascinating. I just love it, because you tell me something, I'm like, yeah, I know. And interestingly, this sleeping phoenix thing has cropped up, and the victim mentality. So the victim, I can get stuck in victim, but I chase freedom. So I do recognize this victim thing, but also the victim thing can be the sleeping phoenix. So a phoenix rises from the ashes. So the phoenix is technically a victim, and then it comes out of that, and and then it's free. And this is kind of how my mind thinks about it. But I was going to get, so I've got a really crap tattoo on my neck, and a couple of years ago, before I even knew this, I thought, I'm going to get that really done, and I'm going to have a phoenix put over it. And I didn't even know about this. But
that's
so
crazy.
So how cool, like, it's just so cool, because of course it's right, because it's us, and it's this design. Just so, on your story today, anybody who doesn't follow Queenie already, please, I will put her links in, please go and follow her. But on your story today, you mentioned something about this sacral will, and you feel and so I've woken up today feeling extremely powerful, and and it's really nice when you wake up feeling a certain way, and just talk to me about that. So you have obviously woken up feeling a similar thing, and that's what this sacral will thing means. You talk to me about it, because I just found it interesting that we both obviously woke up feeling a similar way.
So I can take this from two different points. So the human design one is we we get different gates in us get activated through the transit. So, you know, when you read your astrology and it's like Mercury is now in retrograde, blah, blah, blah. It's a similar thing what we have in human design.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the sun passes through the 64 gates throughout the year. And when it passes through a gate that we've got the corresponding other side of it kind of thing, it lights us up. And it's like, whoo, this is exciting. I feel like completely like I feel whole today. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting thing to watch out for. So every 6 days it goes into a different one. Now, on my stories a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned about it being in gate 34, which is Majesty. And I was like, I am so putting my Queenie cloak on right now. I've got my crown on and everything. And it just lights you up. It gives you an extra bit of punch and power. Yeah. I think we're in gate 9 at the moment. I was going to talk about the other way as well, and I can't remember now. I think also it's the intention that we go to sleep with as well, you know, because I knew that I was coming on the podcast. And when I was, you know, I mean, red lipstick helps as well. I mean, I noticed we both got the red lipstick on. I mean, obviously have to.
I mean, I did it for you.
I washed my hair for you, so there you go.
I'm really pleased. I didn't wash mine for you.
Yours is looking fab, love. It's great.
Oh, thanks. I grew it myself.
I grew it from scratch as well.
From scratch, literally.
It's only taken me
twice. Yeah, no. I know. The hairdresser, sorry, we've gone on a bit of a tangent. The hairdresser said to me at the beginning of the year, she said, I reckon you'll have a bob by Christmas. And I didn't believe her. But it's really curly. But if you pull it down, it is bob length.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. So
yeah, it's growing, and it's a gorgeous color as well.
No,
very different. Very different.
Very different. So anybody who didn't know me from pre-cancer, I had long bleach blonde hair. I used to be platinum, and now I'm a natural brunette. Yes,
it does suit you. I really like it.
Thanks.
Whereas I am actually, I mean, I don't know whether you can see this, I'm actually naturally going grey, which is why
I love your hair. No, I love it because it's so striking, and it just adds to the majesty of your being.
It's my crown. I have one of the most fabulous hairdressers in the world, and he always says that it's your crown. So. Also, I forgot to mention, I'm just going to double check. Yeah, by the way, so you've got your cross of Sleeping Phoenix, which is 4 gates, and obviously one of them is the victim and the freedom.
Yeah.
Newsflash, on the other side, you also have the Gate of Majesty. Of course you do.
I?
Yes.
Yay. So my nickname is Diamonds, and that makes sense.
Also, we're going off on a complete tangent. So me, you, and Gatsby, we make up this like little this gang that we have, and funnily enough, the coven, yeah. So Gatsby, our friend, always says that, you know, her horse, without even realizing it, is called Diamond Queen. And I was like, oh, well, of course it is, you know, funny. Diamonds and Queenie. And then I was in the shower this morning, and what's my furry friend Mycroft? I mean, my is like May, which is Gatsby's second name, and Rosanna Croft.
No. That's hilarious.
I was like,
oh my goodness.
Is that podcast? Now I need to mention it.
Now I need a pet named after you do.
Where is he anyway? He's not.
He was meowing about earlier, which isn't like him. He's been waking me up at 1:23 this morning, which is quite nice, you know. 1, 2, 3. You think, but no, it's not nice. So yeah, he's going through something, but they pick up on our energy, and I got some funky energies going on at the minute, and they pick up on that. So he so interesting. But he's been then shut in the kitchen until it's time for breakfast.
Yeah, thankfully Mycroft has eventually gone to sleep. So
oh bless, I love cats. I love them.
Yeah.
So if people want to learn more about human design, bringing us back on topic, if people want to learn more about human design, where do you suggest they start?
So go and get the human design cheat codes, play life with the cheat codes on.com.
You have them. And so I'll link that.
Yeah, start there. Start with the 4 big fundamentals of human design. So it's your type, which is generator, manifesting generator, blah, blah, blah. Your strategy. So your strategy is how you move through the world. So generators and manifesting generators, for example, we make up 70% of the world, so that some people are going to find some value in this, is to respond to life, which is fantastic when you start really getting into that. Your authority, which is your decision-making authority. So me and you are I think we're emotionals. I think we are.
Probably, that would make sense.
I can't remember. Which is, how we make decisions, which, I mean, the messenger, the guy that created or channeled the human design universe kind of thing, he said basically human design is just knowing how to make better decisions. That's all it is. And if you think about it, it's how we move through the world. And then you've got your profile, which is kind of the role that you get to play in the grand scheme of life. So I'm a 2/4, you're a 2/4 as well, so we're half hermit, half extrovert. So when you see people say on social media, oh well, I'm having an introvert day but I feel very extroverted, that's the role that you get to play. So start with your type, your strategy, your authority, and your profile. You can download the cheat codes, it's all in there. When you see the human design chart, it can be so overwhelming because there's so much to it, but if you focus on those 4 things for 6 months, give yourself 6 months and play around with it, you will come on leaps and bounds just by knowing those 4 things and embodying those 4 things. Incredible.
I think that's amazing and really helpful. And I think if anybody has found this podcast episode extremely interesting, I mean, we could talk about human design for bloody days, but well, we do. Whenever anything happens, or whenever there's an update in the little group, Queenie's like, let me just check your design. So it's amazing. And and when something resonates, that means that we then have a realization, and when we have a realization, when we go back to science, that's neuroplasticity, changing something within your brain, so that then that is a change you have made. So the more you learn about this, the more things resonate, and the more you can act from an aligned place, the easier life gets. You got the cheat codes on.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And you summed it up so well there. So you, like you say, we've got the aha moments with learning, and then we have the alignment where we make the conscious decisions, and then we have the embodying where it just becomes natural to us too. It's who we are. And then, like we mentioned earlier about the gene keys and reading further into, the contemplation of who am I, what is life, what is reality, the archetypes, the Jungian archetypes, all that kind of thing. So it's like there's multiple layers, but stick with the 4 main ones and you can't go wrong. Fantastic.
I think that's really valuable. Thank you. Okay, so I have one last question. In fact, let me just check, because I did have some questions written down. I think we've covered everything, but I have one last question for you that I ask all of my guests. And so it's your last moment on earth, like literally your last moment. Everything that you have said before, all the advice you have given people to live their life has been erased, but you can leave one message to the world. What is it?
Know thyself.
Yes, that's a
just
good one.
Know thyself, because the more you know about yourself, the more authentic you are, and the more authentic you are, the easier life becomes. And as life gets easier, then you get to leave a legacy.
Yes, so that's amazing. I think that's so cool. And you knew that came from here, because a lot of people have to think about it. No, you don't. Just know thyself. And that is, that's why we do self-development, personal development, and like we've just been talking about, life gets so much easier when we know more about ourselves. And when we say self, we don't mean ego, yes,
Mm.
learn about the ego, learn about the persona, learn about that, but also learn about the true self, who you
Yeah.
really
Oh my
are.
God,
And
yeah.
in order to do that, we learn things about human design, and go deep into meditation. You don't have to go as deep as some people do, but you can, just
Mm.
even like being conscious, living a conscious life.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned about meditation and things like that, presence is the key for all of this. It's like, can you sit still enough to make the correct decisions according to your authority? Can you
Yes.
understand the role that you're here to play, and always just be nudging yourself? It doesn't have to be a grand, reinvention of yourself. It's like, can you just incrementally, just a tiny little bit? It's the whole idea of the mandala, isn't
Yeah.
it? Is where it's like a
Yeah.
tiny part of the whole that grows, and then it all just,
Yes.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Isn't it magic? And it's, it's magic. And even looking at the chart of the human design is effectively a mandala as well,
Mm,
because it is starts and it goes out, and it is literally about the self. So
yeah,
that's amazing. Oh, thank you so much for joining us. This
it's
has
been
been
amazing.
incredible. If anybody wants to catch up with Queenie, find her on Instagram. All of her links will be in the bio. In the description. Go and download the cheat codes. And if you want to go deeper, I mean, just contact her, and I'm sure she'll
Yeah,
be able to help.
love to.
So yes, thank you very much for joining us, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks very much.